Thank you. Thank you guys for coming out. My name is Rob Moynihan. I'm a senior writer with TV Guide magazine, and let's get this panel started for Resurrection. First up, she plays Dr. Maggie Langston. Please give it up for Devin Kelley. He plays Sheriff Fred Langston, Matt Craven. He plays Pastor Tom Hale, Mark Hildreth. He plays Agent Marty Bellamy, Omar Epps. She plays Lucille Langston, Frances Fisher. And last but not least, Henry Langston, Kurtwood Smith. So thank you guys for coming out tonight. Since we are at the SAG Foundation, I wanted to kick it off with a question we actually got from the audience here. And I'm curious to know what your audition process was like for Resurrection. Omar, we can start with you.
Hard. No. Because you got auditions are just weird. And it's just a different part of what we do, and you got to prepare. But no, I went in, it was with Aaron, who wrote our pilot, and with Charles McDougall. And creatively, we were on the same vibe. Like, we saw the show eye to eye, and so that made that process easier. And then you just go do what you got to do and make it happen.
Frances, how about you?
I jumped through 3 hoops. I went into the casting director, to Deb Aquila's office, thank God. She's so great. I hope you all have the opportunity to audition for her. And then I got called back for the second audition, and I passed that one. And then I went on to the test where you have to make that deal before you go in, and your head is all into your contract, right? And not into the work. Fortunately, I had digested the character enough to feel secure. So I went in and did the screen test, and then that was it. And I was on my way in a car with my girlfriend to go up for a weekend in the country with my dogs, and I got a call from my agent around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They said, they want you to come back. I said, no, I'm already on the frickin' freeway. It's Friday. So I pull over to the side of the road. I say, Terry, what am I supposed to do? She goes, well, are you going to be uppity about it and go, no. The reason they wanted me to come back, and I kid you not, is because another gal who had tested came in wearing jeans and a blue sweater. And I had worn a kind of a Mother League Southern kind of dress. You know?
I saw you that day, Franny.
You saw
me? Out of the elevator
oh,
and I
that's
was walking.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
You saw each other.
The mom from Titanic. She's auditioning.
I was in this little frumpy dress, which I thought was appropriate for Lucille, you know. But my agent said, you've got to go back. They want to see you in jeans and a sweater. I said, a blue sweater? I don't have one. So I'm sitting there, I'm like on the freeway, and I go, Terry, what am I going to do? Okay, so Uber back to my house. She took my car with my dogs and suitcases up 200 miles, and I went back to my house, changed my clothes, Ubered back to the place to audition in jeans and a pink sweater because... And after the audition, this Charles, who has a British accent, says, let me ask you one question. Do you believe this could possibly happen? And I thought, God, 20 questions. And I told him the truth. I said, I believe that anything is possible. I believe in miracles. And I don't know if the pink sweater got me the job or that answer. But I went back. I took a flight up to my weekend, and I think I heard like maybe Tuesday or something that they'd finally decided on me. But it was stressful because you get to a place where does it really matter if I'm wearing jeans and a sweater or a dress. And they said, this is important for you guys to know, though, because there are not very imaginative people who are making decisions sometimes. And if the other gal had gotten the job because she looked like Lucille, she would have gotten the job if I had been uppity about, I'm not going in, I did my job, Anyway, I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I'd kept on the road.
So, Kurtwood, what color sweater did you wear to your audition?
Pink, of course. Mine is not nearly so interesting.
Can you just talk into the mic real quick? Thanks.
Okay. My audition wasn't all that interesting, actually. The thing about it that I remember the most is that I was really excited to do this. Hey, Veronica. All right. One of our cast members up. Oh, and Maria.
Oh, my God, we've got 2 cast members in the audience.
3.
3? Oh, my God. They're back. They're back.
Return.
Can we introduce them?
Yeah.
Come on, let's introduce them. No, now we're going to put you on the spot. Come on, stand up, stand up.
Yeah, Veronica Cartwright, Kathleen Monroe,
Kevin Sizemore.
Kevin Sizemore.
Don't we have a boom operator here? I was very excited to do this audition because it's not the kind of roles that normally I had been considered for. So I worked on it quite a bit and went in and did it, and I basically did it once, and that was it. And then I didn't hear anything for a long time because ABC wanted them to offer it to people with bigger names. So that went around for a while, and then eventually it came back to me like just before we started work. So that was pretty much it. I do remember one awkward moment in the audition. I remember everybody was very nice, Aaron and Charles and somebody else. But Charles is very quiet, British gentleman. And I can't hear for shit. So, he said something, and I said, what? I'm sorry. And he said, and I said, I'm sorry. What was it you said? And he said, very nice job in Cedar Rapids. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. And then I left thinking, I made him tell me 3 times that he liked me in that movie. I figured I was dead. Anyway, it all worked out, and there you go.
Mark, how about you?
I went in the pink sweater and jeans too, so I was good from the first audition. It was awesome. No, I also read 3 times. A similar experience. We had the director and the producers and the writer, and we were really all very fortunate to have, as Francis mentioned, Deborah Aquila, who's just a wonderful casting director and knows people so well. So I remember the 3rd time that I went in, it was like making adjustments and then making adjustments and then making adjustments. And it's a kind of casting director who reads with you and you feel like you're reading with an actor. You've all had that experience of where you don't feel like you're reading with an actor, And this was just amazing. So she sort of pushes it this way, and we kind of went that way, and then I was like, okay, let's try it again. Let's push it this way. Let's go that way. And they were like, it's great, but you're just missing the pathos. And she was looking for the emotion. So when I found the emotional part of it, it's really what made it sing. And it was we have writers on our show who are just such a privilege to work for. And I always feel like it's, you can, if you want to make something great, you need to have a great starting point. You needed a pristine piece of marble to to sculpt the statue of David, and we had incredible scripts, and so for me it was just finding the truth that was there in the scripts, and that's like water in a desert for actors. But that was pretty much the process. It was similar to what you'd go through, I guess, on any show, but just such supportive people in the room when you could hear what they were saying.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. What?
Matt, did you have an interesting audition story?
No,
No?
I wish I did, but I don't.
Devin?
The only thing is I, normal audition, blah, blah, you're sweaty and nervous, and that's to be expected. But they asked me what I thought of the script, or Charles mumbled, what did you think of the script? And just because, can't lie, I was like, at first I heard the idea and I thought it sounded stupid. and then I was like, but it's really good. And then Aaron's sitting there, God bless him, so sweet, kind of don't play. So I was like, but it's so good. So then I spend the rest of the thing being and then there's this part, and then it's about humans, and it's about their stories and adventures and trying to find the emotional arc of these great characters that you wrote. And then I walked out of there well, that happened, so great. And then I got the part, so it all worked out okay.
Well, it's also based on a book as well. Had any of you read the book, or did you read the book before starting?
It wasn't out.
It wasn't out.
Yeah, the book wasn't out. They actually optioned the manuscript. So the book came out after we shot the pilot.
So did you, get a sneak peek at what the book was going to be like, to kind of get a roadmap as to where you were going?
We got copies.
Yeah,
During the pilot.
Jason came and gave us copies, and I just started reading it.
That was
and then
during the
you
series,
told-
though. That was
and
before
then
the
you told
pilot.
me to
I mean,
stop
after
reading
the
it.
pilot.
What? Excuse me?
That was after the pilot.
It was?
No, it was during the pilot.
It was during the
It was
pilot.
during the pilot. Yeah, listen to us.
You're wrong.
And then you told me to stop reading it because it veers off. So, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Great book.
Yeah.
Great book. He's a poet. The way he describes human emotion is very visceral, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's also interesting too, because it was originally, it's a broadcast show, but it's only 8 episodes. It's very cable model for broadcast. Did that model draw you as actors, instead of maybe doing the traditional 22 episode season, to have more of a condensed story in that way?
I think, go ahead.
Well, we didn't know what we were signing up for when we did the pilot. We didn't know that it was going to. Is that what you mean? Did we know? Is that something that drew us to the project
I didn't.
initially?
Yeah. Did you know that? No.
After it got picked up, we found out that it was 8 episodes. So we were already locked in.
But as actors, do you enjoy kind of the shorter storytelling model for seasons?
It depends on the story. The first time, when I first met with Aaron and Charles, I told them this wouldn't work in 22 show format. And we went and talked about the story and the type of, the pacing of telling this type of story has to draw out. You have to be patient with it. And 22 episodes works for formulas, cop shows, medical shows, someone's dead, they gotta find the killer. But it just wouldn't work, in my opinion, for this type of show. You need to invest into these characters and let the stories weave out and take their time.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting subject matter, death. It's something that's, around for everybody. And I think the show really examines it through many different lenses, 2 big ones being science and religion. And I guess, Mark, it's you being the religion part of the lens, how do you think the show balances talking about, having that conversation about death without, veering into too preachy of a model?
I met with a lot of Christian ministers, and I wanted to be at least respectful and at best accurate to their experience and where they come from, and I'm not particularly religious personally in any particular way, but I personally find a certain amount of truth in a lot of different religious perspectives and non-religious perspectives. I think Resurrection from the beginning was all about people and human beings and how do human beings deal with this. And it was never really about the supernatural so much as, you know, dead people coming back to life was more of a vehicle to explore each human being's, each character's perspective on life and what they believe and what they need to believe and what they need to not believe. And we have a great set of characters, and I think we have great actors playing these characters who have such different points of view. So everybody comes at it, and when Jacob first comes back, each person's got a different way of seeing it. Some people need to believe that it's true. Some people need to believe that it's not true. But it was always about more, how do you deal with this stuff as a human being? Maybe we don't deal with human beings coming back to life, but we all deal with death, and we all deal with these major life events, these major occurrences, and you can sort of project those onto our device of people coming back to life. So from the religious point of view, I was more interested in what makes a human being want to do that? What makes a human being want to follow that path? You know, become a pastor, become a minister, become a leader in that way, and then what would happen if you put him in the worst possible scenario? And we're all in a sense lucky because each of our characters gets put in the worst possible scenario for their particular point of view. And that's the best drama. That's the best drama when you have two people coming at it from opposite perspectives, kind of fighting each other and fighting themselves. It was the character drama aspect of the show that really, I think, moved me the most when I read it. And I think that's maybe our strongest asset.
Yeah. Did anybody else do any research into their character or their character's field? Matt, did you do any extra research?
Well, you know, I read the book, which was really great. It was great to read the book because, you know, you got to see the world explored through the author's eyes. As Francis said, he's just a very visual writer and very poetical and goes very deep with characters. So that was something that I always hung on to when we were shooting. You know, I play a sheriff, so, you know, I've played police officers before, so that aspect wasn't, you know, important really. You know, Mark said it really well. It's about the interpersonal relationships between these people. It's about how they are with each other, and that's the part of it that I love the most. Mm-hmm. You know, they're full-on complex human beings, all of them. Every character, small or big.
Yeah, and some of the most poignant scenes actually come through the silences from you guys as actors too. Can you talk about, you know, kind of filming? Are those difficult for you when you're kind of, you know, wordless and you have to do those silent scenes? Do you enjoy doing those more silent, intimate scenes? Anybody can grab
It's
it.
really, you know, Aaron's writing is, you know, he likes to have air. Mm-hmm. And as an actor, it's sort of, one of the things that I go to is, you know, what's in between, not what the lines are, but what's in between the lines, you know, what the character, where he was, where he's going, not necessarily what's on the page. And he just does that naturally. He just writes with air. And so it never felt like we were doing something that was abnormal. It just fit, for me anyway, it just fit. It was just, it was real. It was how people speak and how people are with each other.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have difficulty kind of disconnecting themselves from the emotion of the scene when you go home at the end of the day? It's a heavy subject matter. It's, you know, it's a lot to take in. Francis, do you? No.
I love Lucille because I think I would be exactly like her. So I don't have to really disconnect. Although there were some hard scenes that we had to do that are coming up in future episodes that I remember telling the director, I don't like doing this scene. I don't really want to be here doing this because that's what Lucille's going through. It was so, you know, connected to me, but I did it, but it was difficult.
Yep.
Stay tuned.
Well, Omar, can you talk about, you know, Bellamy's journey too, because he's kind of he's the outsider to this town, and what was it about this character and this storyline that really drew you to this guy, and really his connection with Jacob, and we see in the episode you guys just saw, there was a little more, backstory as to why he's so drawn to this boy.
Yeah, I was drawn to Bellamy because to me, I saw him as you guys' eyes, like even when I first read the script, because he's the outsider, but it was like I was on the outside watching him as I was reading the script, and then the other connection, which is what got me excited about, it's like, how do you, as an actor, ground yourself in an impossibility, right? Like we train, we latch on to things that we've experienced or we imagine or whatever. This is a phenomenon that has never happened. So how do you find the foundation in that? And that really got me excited because, and we spoke about this, it's just like, you literally have to live in the moment. There is no foundation. So you just have to go and you're gone and see where it takes you. And that was really refreshing to me, creatively.
Mm-hmm.
And then, Aaron and I, we spoke about some backstory and things like that, where I saw Bellamy, where he came from. It was way darker than what Aaron had built for him. But he saw that I'd done the work, and then, when Jason Mott, who wrote the book that the show's based on, when we first met, and I gave him that, and he was like, okay, Bellamy's in good hands. And then I was confident I was going on the right track.
So you wanted to know as much backstory as you could from this character?
Well, yeah, I built his backstory,
You built it,
but I
yeah.
wanted to know, Jason's perspective, and I just want to say something real quick, is that you always have a hunch about things, but when I asked Jason, so where does this story come from? And it came from a truth. It came from a dream he had about seeing his mom, who had passed away. And he came down, and it was one of those dreams he said was like, those dreams that seem real. And he sat down and talked with his mom for like an hour in this dream, and then he woke up. And that's where this comes from. So it's based in truth. That really gave me chills, and it was like, oh, we're really dealing with something special here.
I think also something that Omar said just now, I think is probably the most important in terms of what a lot of us are doing in the show, and that is that it is all about the moment for the most part. Mark had to do, some research, but because of your character. But I think for the rest of us, it's all pretty much play it as it lies, There's something about the writing that I really like too. The first time I saw the pilot, and I hadn't noticed it when I'd read the script, and I read the script a couple times before we shot it. I never really connected with that line that your boss has when she first gives you the assignment, and she says, it's a kid, that just went right by me until we had done the show, and then I went, oh, boom. There's something in his background about a kid. I totally missed that. It was such a nice plant, I think, on Aaron's part, It's great.
Well, the other interesting thing, too, is they're kind of hinting at it. There might be maybe some sort of romantic connection between Bellamy and Maggie. It seems that they're, hanging out a lot. They're
Not okay.
as her father, yeah. Is it correct to assume that that the foundation for that is being laid, or is it just that these are two people?
No pun intended.
Or are these just two people who are kind of, thrown together because of this event? Either of you can speak to it.
Hello. I don't know. I think there have been some little seeds planted, but to take it from Maggie's perspective, what I love so much about this, or it's Devin, I guess, what I love so much about this character is that Maggie is a full-fledged human. She's not someone's girlfriend. She's not just a doctor or just like this girl that's, having fun in this town or whatever. She's a full-fledged human. She's a daughter. She's a professional. She's a niece, all of these things. And I like that Aaron wrote her as an independent human who didn't need to, just talk about, what her boyfriend did that night, it was real, and it was what I would want to watch as a 20-something girl, and I think it represents 20-something girls well. So if there is a romantic thing that happens, hopefully it'll happen like season 7 or something when we run out of ideas. but nothing against you. But I like that we're.
I agree. Let's be on for 7 years.
Let's take it slow. But I think I like that we're just that these characters, that Maggie and Bellamy, are two people on the same page fighting for the same cause and trying to get to the same thing. And they get along really well. They work very well together. And it's not about those kinds of feelings. And even if they were, I like that these characters are operating within the situation and not being selfish and dealing with like, oh, he's kind of cute. They have bigger fish to fry at this point, you know?
Yeah. Well, Maggie also has a very interesting relationship with her father because she's got kind of a she does have a vested interest in what's going on because her mother was a part of all of this action here, and the more that the information about their mother is revealed, I mean, the more interesting the relationship between both of you get, and really, Matt, the relationship that Fred has with the town and with people around him, because it seems like if he learns, the more he learns about her, is it the angrier he gets? Is it the more unsatisfied he gets? Is he just was he okay with kind of burying his head in the sand? How does that change Fred, kind of peeling those layers away of to where his wife went?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When I started, when you read a pilot and you sort of start to build a character, one of the things that really got me was here's a man who, the love of his life dies 32 years ago. He never remarries. He doesn't. He raises his daughter. He's a bit of an alcoholic, and he's the sheriff. So clearly, it's somebody who's retreated inside himself. Mm-hmm. And then this phenomenon happens, and it forces him to sort of have to deal with that. So it's kind of what's great playing the sheriff is, you're in charge, which is great, but you have relationships. All your relationships with everybody is slightly different. It's not just one thing, and raising a daughter on top of that. I've children myself, so it's just it's very complex, and as each show goes, things happen to him that you wouldn't really wish on your best friend. Things are revealed, and it just unravels. His life starts to unravel. So as an actor, nothing better, nothing better. But just on the point about like fathers and daughters, Dan Attias he directed like 3 of our shows. And early on, he said to Devin and I, you guys have such, because we have a great relationship as people, and you guys have a loving relationship, but you can't show it. And that was just such a great little nugget because it sort of informed everything. Small town people don't necessarily open up, they're not, free with their emotions. So that was a great thing and really helped us a lot.
Well, he's absolutely, at the beginning, more skeptical about what's going on, and she's a little bit more accepting. But how is their relationship going forward from where we are now? How is that going to change or evolve? Can you preview?
Don't answer that.
Yeah, how can we answer that?
Oh, it
Gets
Watch
more
the
complex.
show.
I know, that's exactly what I was just going to say. He's already finishing my sentences.
Well,
it gets messy.
it gets messy.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about Henry and Lucille's relationship too, because this is at the very beginning. This was the first event, the first moment that really started this whole phenomenon. Was having Jacob come back, and to the rest of the town, Jacob is just this boy who died. But to the two of you, it was your son. And I'm curious, and it's very interesting to see how they both react in very different ways to him coming back. And Francis, you touched on this a little earlier, like you would react the same way. But can you just kind of talk about, how that reaction and that character and how she chose how to, accept him back when everybody else was kind of pushing him away?
Well, probably in reality, if I saw someone who had died standing in front of me, I'd probably freak out and run in the opposite direction. I mean, really. I mean, really. But we can't do that on a TV show. That wouldn't be very becoming. So the other choice was to live it all inside and process all of that. And basically, what it is for Lucille is an answer to a prayer. And to go very deep with that. I mean, that's how I was able to stand in the room and do that, as opposed to running away and out of fear or something. You know, that the wish for this is so deep that it transcends fear. And my faith is so great.
And Kurtwood, why does Henry have that apprehension that he does have?
Well, as Francis just said, I think that most people, when faced with something like this, would be apprehensive, and I mean, it's one thing to know that someone passed away. It's another thing to have actually buried them and actually put them in that tomb and seen them dead, and everything about his being there completely destroys any form of logic. And number one. Number two, he has given up so much of his life to that loss. I mean, he pretty much, his backstory in terms of his relationship with his brother, with what he was the town's biggest employer at one time. He had this big furniture factory, which has only been casually mentioned in the series so far, but that's where Caleb was hired, which has been abandoned. It was big. He was the main employer in this entire little city here. And when they lost the boy, he lost all that desire to do anything in terms of a career, in terms of a livelihood. I mean, they had enough money that they still lived comfortably, but he putters in his garage, and he's just let his life go. So that not only can he not deal with it logically, he can't. It just means that he sacrificed his life, in a sense, let his life go for nothing, because now the boy is back. So it just doesn't. It doesn't add up.
Right.
And so there's that, and then but then of course that's what affects their relationship, because with everything that's gone on, the one thing they had was each other, and that's what's held them together for 32 years. And now the boy being there has driven a stake into that relationship. Certainly at this point in the series, and so that is not only interesting as far as the relationship between Francis and I on screen, but also in terms of his mind, in terms of losing now the one thing that's held him together all that time, and yet at the same time refusing to give in because of everything else. So it really puts him in a box that he just can't deal with.
Do you think ultimately this can strengthen that marriage, or I mean, there were some bumps along the way that we've seen?
I think that there have been bumps, and I think that there's still 3 episodes to be seen, so I'm not trying to give anything away. I'm not sure in that regard, in terms of what you're talking about, how much of that comes about anyhow in the next few episodes, because things get rolling along so quickly. But it certainly it provides that opportunity for them to sort of reunite and strengthen their relationship. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger, that whole thing. So let's hope, or do we want that? I don't know. Sometimes it's more, conflict is more interesting to act, maybe. But certainly it's there, and that's one of the great strengths of the writing in this, for this show. I think we all feel that way.
I just thought, what the spiritual path I'm on says you can either be in love or in fear. You cannot live in both. And that's really the way I look at this. It's like, what do you choose? And in fact, Marty says it. What is the exact line you say? Do you want? No. It was about episode 3, I think.
I ain't that good.
Do you, what do you want to believe, or
Right.
do you want to believe? Mm-hmm. Do you want to believe? That question resonated so much with me when I heard you say that. Do you want to believe? What do you want to believe? Because truly, we are masters of our own universe, and whatever we think is what happens in our world. And I think that we're all struggling. All these characters represent that. What are we choosing to believe in? And that's how we're going to make our way through the world.
I'm curious too what it's like working with Langdon, because he has such powerful scenes for such a young actor.
He's an amazing kid. Because watching the show now, I mean, he's right there. He's present. I mean, the secret of acting is working with good children. I mean, because that's when you see what it's all about. Where there isn't any kind of artifice, there isn't any kind of professionalism, there isn't anything like that. It's all right there. When he's a good little actor, and I think I think Landon is just terrific, and as good as I thought he was when we were actually working with him, he's even better on screen. I don't know. He has no real. He's had some acting classes, but this is his first job, really, and I think he's just, he's great. He's such a little trooper. He's always there, always knows his lines, and yet he's not like, this little tiny 40-year-old person. I mean, he's really a kid, and he's wonderful. It's great. Now, of course, he'll come back this year, be a monster, and we'll have to slap him in shape, but the first year was good.
Yeah. You'll take it all back.
Right.
Yeah, he's very honest. He doesn't know how to lie about stuff yet. He hasn't learned those tricks.
Yeah, you feel very protective of him. I felt when I met him, I wanted to take care of him. I want to make sure he was, it's a difficult business for us as adults, never mind as an 8-year-old, be on on the film set and all these adults, wanting you to perform and all of that. And he was very genuine. He was very, very right there and listening to you and very present and intimidating. You're like, God, he's better than I am. I've been doing this for 30 years and he's better than I am.
And Landon, I remember when we did the very first table read, and I kept, wondering, what's the tone of this show going to be? What is this going to feel like? And as soon as he opened his mouth, it just was crystal clear, because we were very conscious of, people, is it supernatural? Is it sort of ominous thing? Like what? And, we were consciously trying to stay away from that, and just essentially it's a family drama. It's ordinary people dealing with extraordinary circumstances. But I'll never forget that, because as soon as he spoke, I was just like, oh, this is a kid. Oh, it's just going to be real life happening with, this thing hanging over them. And I thought that was beautiful.
He's terrible at baseball, though.
He's learning, though.
I know.
He learned to
I know.
catch. He comes
did.
from a beautiful family of about 5 kids, and he's homeschooled, and his parents are fantastic. And we spent many long weekends at my house in Georgia, riding horses and cooking and walking through the woods, and you missed a lot. That's all I need.
Well,
You don't know what he was doing. Maybe you miss a lot.
you filmed.
But Charles McDougall, let me just tell you one thing that Charles McDougall said, changing the subject, but back to Landon. He said he had seen all of the young actors in New York and all of the young actors in LA, and he just was not satisfied. He did not find the right boy for this part. and they ended up going to Houston. And fortunately, that's where Landon lives. And he got the job because of his authenticity. And thank God that Charles McDougall was so, persistent in not, settling for anything but the best.
The show doesn't work without that. Period.
But I think one other thing with regard, in terms of what I was talking about, his sort of purity of acting, he's also really smart, and which I think is always really important to actors.
And you filmed the first season in Atlanta, correct? How important was filming, kind of away from an LA soundstage and filming in Atlanta, do you think, to the overall, feeling and tone of the show? Did you all enjoy that more so because you were kind of away from all the noise?
Don't let Matt answer this one.
No, but, well, the truth is that when we did the pilot in Atlanta, I didn't like it at all. I hated the city. And I just couldn't get into it. And the thought of coming back there was such a nightmare. But now I'm looking forward to going back. And I think the main reason is because, and it happened in the pilot, we became a company, all of us. And organically, like not trying to, it just happened. And that's rare, and so, and also all the, the three people sitting there, having great people come and be a part of it, and it just became, I didn't want to leave, to be honest, and I can't wait to go back, knock wood.
Well, yes.
Have you heard anything about a season 2 yet? Do you guys know?
Not yet.
Not yet.
The thing about working on location is that it keeps your mind on the show. It allows life to intrude on what you do less than it does when you're at home. It's easy when you're at home on those days you have off, because in this kind of show, almost everybody except for Omar gets several days off a week, and it's easy to forget about your job and when you're at home. And when you're there, you think, with all the things that may or may not irritate you by being in another town, and what may bother you about that town in particular, that helps to remind you what you're doing, you know what I mean? So I think that
The aesthetic definitely, you can build a beautiful soundstage, beautiful sets, but you just can't replace the real thing. And I think seeing it, after the fact was like, wow. Really,
looks great.
it's another character in the show.
Well, Mark, I want to ask about Tom because in the past couple episodes, he's been thrown a little bit with the reappearance of Rachel, and I'm just curious as to, he's already grappling with this phenomenon from a religious point of view, but how has her presence affected him and his relationship with his wife and with his God?
It's completely thrown everything that he knows and everything that he believes and everything he holds on to the way I approached it was maybe a little similar to what Francis was saying. I think you can have a relationship with God, whatever your God is, and whether you look at that from a religious perspective or you look at that more from a scientific perspective. Science has tenets of faith also, when you really get down to it. So he has a need to believe. And from a human point of view, that was what I connected to the most. Why does this guy need to do this? He loses his best friend when he is 8 years old. The woman, the love of his life, drives herself off a bridge a month before their marriage. That would put anybody into a conundrum about, like, why are we here? Like, what's the point of all this? And drive you to need a kind of faith, whatever that faith was. And I decided that he found the Bible and he found the answers that he was looking for. And that it's one thing to preach the miracles of God, it's another thing to have a real miracle show up right in front of your face. And then, how much faith do you really have? So when Rachel shows up, he's already had his whole world rocked by Jacob coming back. Now he has to look at how have I done that? How have I identified myself, I guess, in a way? How have I created a sense of meaning in my life, not only through my faith, but now through my relationship, the other most important thing in my life, my marriage. And that to me felt very human. That felt very real, and that felt like something I could relate to, and that felt like something anybody could relate to. So when you're really pushed up against, it's one thing to say, I love you, and we say those things, and I leave the house, I love you, honey, and all those things. And it's another thing when you have a real test of faith, when a real important thing happens. In this case, it's someone coming back to life, but it could be somebody dying, or it could be, these things happen in a relationship. And I was in a place in my life with things that were happening to me in my life, and my relationships changed so much, and the timing was weird, how it happened that way, because it was just like in my heart where this guy was at. Like Kurtwood was saying, it wasn't something that you wanted to plan too much and go, well, this is how I'm going to play it, and this is how he would look at it, and here's how he would feel, and think it all out. It was more like, get under that tree, that beautiful tree, Georgia tree with Kathleen, and just play it for real. And the writing carries you if it's good. And in this case, that's what we have. So I didn't have to really, think it out too much. But it's the best stuff to play. It's the best stuff to play. And you got a real crisis of faith where everything you believe is taken from you. It's that vulnerability that I think people relate to the most.
Now, on a show with a big central mystery, I know you guys can't talk about where it's going or reveal any spoilers or anything, but I'm curious, you as actors, do you have bets or like pools as to what you think is going on? Like, do you have your own theories that you're maybe not sharing with producers or sharing with producers to kind of get answers yourself?
We definitely had theories, and most of them were wrong.
What were some of the wrong ones?
Well, you just What?
It's the process of elimination.
Oh yeah, no, I won't say that. But it's that thing where you get a script and you think you have an idea of where it's going to go, and then we would get scripts and go, what? Unbelievable. And the mythology just kept growing and growing. So
It's about enjoying the ride. I mean, beginning I was kind of wondering, but I lost that because I want to find out when it's time to find out. It's funny because it's like, we're 4 shows in or whatever. And like, go on social media, Twitter, and people are like already impatient. Like, oh, I want to know now. I'm not watching anymore. It's like, it's 4 shows. Like,
Yeah. You're halfway through. Come on, yeah.
So it's just
Barbara Walters, she grabbed Francis and I in the hallway in New York and said, all right now, I want to know. Can't tell you
Chill
that.
out, Babs.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it's really enjoying the ride. It's not about the how, it's more exploring the why, and because that's where the emotion is at. This is, what do you do when the past, burst into your present? Kurtwood said something earlier, talking about the father, and it's just like, imagine we've all lost someone, a loved one, and you've done all this work you never fill that void. You just deal with it and go. And so imagine that coming back, it's basically ripping the patchwork off of your heart and your blood starts flowing again, in terms of your emotion. And that's really, we're going down that rabbit hole. That's more important than, how is this able to happen,
Well, before we run out of time, I want to get to some of these audience question cards that they filled out. The first one is for anybody who wants it. It's from Prince. Little Wolf, I think I'm reading that correct. Prince, yeah. If you could bring one person back to life for one day, someone you know or someone in history, who would it be, and what would you ask or say to them?
Frank Sinatra, and we go have a drink.
That's good. Francis?
Well, excluding all my family members, I would want to go have a drink with Jesus.
I think there's a Stevie Wonder song. It's like,
Is it a Stevie Wonder
have a
song?
drink with God. No?
You know, if the guy really was what he, you know,
A lot of questions.
I want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
My father was killed in the Second World War when I was like a year old, and so I think it would be pretty interesting to see him. Of course, he'd be 24 years old, so you know that would be an odd situation, but it'd have to be interesting. So.
My grandparents on my mom's side were both born deaf, and they had. So I learned sign language when I was really little. I was 5 years old. So I mean, it would be them for sure. I don't know if I would ask them anything in the traditional way because they wouldn't be able to hear me, but they had the best sense of humor, of anyone I've ever known, and it's just that look, you know, it's that look that your grandpa gives you, you know, that kind of like little wink, and I just want to see that. I think that would be the thing. I just want to see that. It always made me laugh, you know.
He's such a professional curmudgeon, you know?
Devin?
Like father, like daughter. Well, Omar and I talked about this. John Lennon was the one that we were throwing out a lot. Because imagine all the good music that could still be written. So, yeah, we'll go that route.
Lennon and Bob Marley.
Yeah, sure. We'll all get together.
Go have
The
drinks
four
with
of
Frank
us.
Sinatra.
Yeah, 5 of us.
That'd be a hell of a night, man.
Kurtwood, this question's for you. This is from Sherry. You've had such a varied career. What attracts you to certain projects?
What attracts me? You know, I don't know. I mean, it's not like there's one particular thing. It's, of course, the character. I mean, it's the character and how he's written. You know, and then sometimes it's money, and sometimes it's something that you feel will further your career. I hate to be so crass about it, but that's really true. You know, the things that excite me, like this role, it was the role, it was the writing and the role, and the fact that I thought that I loved the pilot. I thought, this is fascinating. It's a great show. Love to do this part. Be different for me. All that stuff. But there have been plenty of things that I've done in the past. There are things that I've done that I have no idea why I did them. You know, it's just at the moment. You know, it's why my career has been kind of because sometimes you don't know why you do things. You know, because you're bored, because you haven't worked for a while, or, you know. I'm sorry. I wish I had a really good, you know, deep and honest and, you know, meaningful answer to that. But basically, it's like, ooh. But for this part, it was because it's a great part.
And one more here from Marco. This is to anyone, but I'm just going to single Matt out because he's not answering any of the other questions.
And he refuses to be on Twitter, too.
What? So Matt, what is your best tip for beginning actors?
God, I don't know. I guess treat auditions like you already have the job.
Anybody else have a tip they want to share? Something that's worked for them?
Can't beat what he just said.
Can't be what?
Make sure it's your passion, because sometimes the only reward is creating a character and having fun on stage, working with your scene partners. Make sure you're doing it for the love of it.
Great.
Yeah, I have one of that.
Good.
I always think it's funny how, and you hear this, and especially here in Hollywood, like overnight success, you know, like overnight sensation. You know, like it just came out of nowhere, like nobody expected it, you know. It's like, yeah, but I don't think that exists. I mean, I don't know. I've never met anybody who was like, you know, I don't know. I was driving trucks and then I walked into this room and now I'm a movie star. Like that doesn't.
Well, that guy
that
on
doesn't
The
happen.
Captain, that's kind of what happened to him. A miracle.
Forget what I said. I don't know. I'm just starting out. I don't know the answer to these things. No, I mean I've been working for a long time, you know, and
Thank you.
I feel like for, you know what I mean, for if you're starting out as an actor, you just keep pushing, just keep pushing. I think that would be the best advice. Talent is good and all those things and looks and all these things, but I think the best work that I respect the most in any actor that I've seen, that I really look up to, you know, is like they work harder than anybody else. They work harder than anyone else in the room. So I maybe there's exceptions to the rule, but you know, I don't really believe in that so much in what I would define as success. You know, it's like you just keep going, and I agree with Matt. Every time you go in, you treat it like you're working, because that is your work, and when you work, you give it 100% or not, or what's the point? You know?
Great. Well, thank you to the cast of Resurrection.